Episode 7 Fading Boundaries. Avery's POV. It had been 3 days since Avery arrived in Paris, and she was starting to find a rhythm in the chaos. The city no longer felt overwhelming. It felt alive, a place where she could lose herself in the rush of people and the hum of activity. But every time she started to feel settled, a new wave of uncertainty would crash over her. Kaia had been an incredible guide, showing her the hidden corners of the city, taking her to art galleries and cozy cafes that Avery never would have found on her own. And yet, despite all the beauty and connection between them, something unspoken hung in the air. They were on borrowed time. In just a few days, Avery would be boarding a plane back to Iceland, back to her quiet, predictable life, and the thought terrified her. "What do you think happens after this?" Avery asked softly one evening as they sat at a small cafe, watching the sun set over the Seine. Kaia looked over at her, her face unreadable. "After this?" Avery nodded, her heart pounding. "After I go back home, do we just go back to how things were? Texting, calling, pretending like we don't want more?" Kaia's POV. Kaia's chest tightened at Avery's question. She had been avoiding this conversation, burying the anxiety deep down, hoping that maybe, somehow, they could figure it out later. But later was coming fast, and they didn't have answers. "I don't want to go back to that," Kaia admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't want to just be the girl on the other side of a screen anymore." Avery's eyes widened, and Kaia felt her own fear reflected in them. This wasn't just a fling or a fantasy. They had something real. But could they make it last when their worlds were so far apart? Kaia reached across the table, taking Avery's hand in hers. "But I also don't know how we can keep this going. I can't move to Iceland, and you have your life there. How do we bridge that gap?" Avery's POV. Avery had been dreading this moment, knowing that the realities of their situation would eventually have to come to light. But now that it was here, she realized how deeply she cared about Kaia, enough to want to figure it out. "I don't know either," Avery admitted, her thumb tracing circles on Kaia's palm. "But I do know that I don't want to lose this. I don't want to lose you." For a long moment, they sat in silence, the weight of their situation pressing down on them. Avery thought about her life in Iceland, about the cold winters and the isolation she had once cherished. But now, it felt empty. Paris had opened her up in ways she hadn't expected, and Kaia was the reason for that. "We could try visiting more," Avery suggested cautiously. "It won't be easy, but maybe we can make it work." Kaia's POV. Kaia's heart swelled at Avery's words. There was hope in them, a spark of possibility that she had been afraid to let herself feel. But even as she considered the idea, doubt crept in. "Maybe," Kaia said slowly, her mind racing. "But what if we can't? What if the distance becomes too much?" Avery's hand tightened around hers. "We won't know unless we try." The sincerity in Avery's eyes made Kaia's heart skip a beat. For the first time in a long time, she felt like maybe, just maybe, they could defy the odds. On the next episode, Only Fate. As Avery and Kaia struggle with the realities of a long-distance relationship, they're forced to confront what they're willing to sacrifice for love. Will they be able to find a way forward, or are they destined to drift apart? The lines between fantasy and reality blur, leaving both girls to question where their hearts truly belong. Thank you for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe.